Well, it's 8 o'clock in the morning on Monday, and it's Veterans Day, and I salute all my fellow veterans out there. Thank you for your service. Okay, now getting back to the T20. I did a little research online and answer a few questions. Yeah, we tried the concentric, but it sits at an angle. The engine's at an angle, and the concentric was at an angle. And I'm not too sure that concentrics like to be at an angle because it would change the angle of the dangle of the fluid in the float bowl. So we ran the bike. It didn't make a whole lot of improvements. So we went back to the monoblock. Now, the fun part of working on client bikes, it's a totally different world than when you're working on your own bike. You know your bike. You know your bike. You've had your bike. If it's modified, you modified it. If it's completely stock, you know it. If all the parts on it are original, you know it. You know your bike because you have history. With client bikes, we know. This bike came in here disassembled. The cylinders were off, the pistons were out, the head was sitting loose. We put it together, new pistons, new rings, and then hung the carburetor on it that came with it, which we assume, and I hate that word, but assume was the carburetor that was on the bike when it last ran ever so long ago, or maybe last week. We don't know when this bike was last a whole running bike, and we don't know if at that point in time when it was a running bike, whether it was a well running bike. We don't have any background on this bike. It could be a real beast that the guy, whoever owned it prior, got rid of it because it was such a pain in the tush, or it could be something that was loved and cherished and taken care of and always ran like a top with the carburetor that's currently on it. Now, we've been through this carburetor about, I'm going to say 3 times, but I guarantee we've been through that carburetor more than 3 times. Yea, verily, we checked the jetting, and the jetting at this point in time is what the book calls for. The pilot jet, the needle jet, the main jet are all within specifications as defined in the book for the T120, but not necessarily for a T120M. We have no specs on the M, and we have no timing specs on the M. But in last night's research, going through the internet and looking at a couple videos that commenters sent me, the top dead center that the gentleman knows me in those videos, who hates electronic ignition, by the way, and is still a points guy, he kept saying, and somebody else said, 7 millimeters, 7 millimeters, 7 millimeters from before top dead center is the correct timing point for this engine, possibly, maybe, if it's for an M also. Now, even though different variations of the engines were designed, I mean, they have high compression, racing, this, that, and the other, I don't think they changed the crankshaft on any of the models. I don't think they may have changed the pistons, so you get high dome pistons instead of low dome pistons. They may have even changed something in the rockers, I don't know what. But that doesn't affect your ignition timing. If you have high dome pistons or a flat piston, the displacement is still the same because that's controlled by the length of the connecting rod and the swing of the crankshaft. So right now, just for curiosity, we're going to see what distance before top dead center we currently have on the engine after I manipulated the electronic pickup on the other side. Remember, I rotated that and got the bike to run a whole lot better. We were using degrees of 28 degrees, and we actually did that with the degree wheel on the alternator. But I think we ended up with something bigger or smaller. We're going to find out what our displacement is now. We were using 4 millimeters, which was 28 degrees. Now we're going to see what offset we have now from top dead center on this piston when we have the timing lines lined up on the mag pickup. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. And I hope you can understand some of the difficulty we're in. This is not a privately owned bike. We don't have any history on it. And yeah, we've tried everything that everybody's mentioned, and we're still working on it. So here we go. It's a new day. It's bright and sunny, shiny, and the birds are singing, and we're going to start all over. We're going to check the displacement. Maybe change the pilot jets. I have one in my stock that's larger than the one that's in it. And then we're going to fix that leaky oil line and see how the bike runs. Here we go. Happy Monday, and have a good Veterans Day, all you vets out there. All right, we just checked the timing, the displacement timing on the Triumph. We're seeing what it ended up at when I went in there and arbitrarily moved the mag pickup timing yesterday. Well, surprise, it ended up to be exactly 7 millimeters before top dead center. So we did it right and ended up where it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be 7 millimeters before top dead center, full advance. Okay. I made this. I want to show you this. This is the top dead center tool, or timing tool, out of an old spark plug. I put the wire through at an angle because with the plug in the engine at an angle, it gives you more of a vertical reading. So this is almost vertical when you have it inside a slanted head, and it gives you a real accurate reading rather than going in at an angle as the traditional TDC tools that you buy. So I like this. Now the only thing is, if you're going to make one, you get some tubing that fits the brass rod. You solder it in at an angle like so, and be sure to cut it flush at the bottom, because if you don't, you won't be able to screw the thing into the head. So you screw that into the head, you put the rod in it, and I've used this so many times that I have increments actually marked. I actually have a collection of these for different bikes. And so we measured off 7 millimeters, put it at top dead center, backed it up 7 millimeters, and it is set to the electronic timing disc. Absolutely perfect. So you can't get better than that using this method. So now we're going to just fix these oil lines and see how the bike runs. And by the way, there was a number 20 pilot jet in the monologue. I happen to have a 25 in my spares at home, so I brought it up. We're going to put the 25 in, see if that makes any difference also. Okay, so once we get the oil lines sealed, we'll start the bike and see how it runs. All right, we put in a slightly larger pilot jet, confirmed that the timing is set to 7 millimeters before top dead center. And Kevin is currently bouncing on the tickler to tickle the carburetor. The poor boy has picked up my bad habits. See him go, bouncy, bouncy, bouncy. Over here, to cure the oil leak that we had, we put in all new lines. The old black herringbone were so crystal and brittle that we really couldn't do much with them, couldn't tighten them. So we've got all new oil lines, both source, the Gazinta and the Gazzetta, and the small section that goes up to the rocker boxes. So the very first thing we'll do when we start the bike is check to make sure we have good oil return. And let's see, what else did we do? Anything else?
Rear brake.
Oh yeah, we adjusted the rear brake, so we've got a good rear brake now. And we're going to start the bike and check for oil flow, and if it sounds good.
Now that's a real project.
Kevin doesn't believe it's a real project until he's bumped his head on at least one handlebar. And yeah.
I'm not getting a tickle. I mean, I've tickled this thing a million times. Gosh darn it.
Yeah, we got petcock oil flow, we got gas flow.
Yeah.
All right, now you got 1,500 people out there saying, I wish he wouldn't bounce on that thing.
Know. But I held it down for a minute and nothing happened. Let's see if anything good. I don't like that.
So we got bouncy, 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 bouncy.
Yeah, usually it takes 30 to 40, and I did it over 100 times and didn't get any.
Yeah, because we completely emptied it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any bubbles in there, so theoretically we should have a guess.
Yep.
Got a little bit of moisture here.
Okay.
So, you want to try and start it and see what
Yeah,
happens?
let's
And
see.
then we'll look into the...
I'm going to tighten that a little bit. That's good.
All right, let's double check gas flow. Okay. The slide is worn. This I don't care about because it's supposed to, you need clearance for rotation as much as it does. But what does bother me is see how much lateral play there is in that. The slide is worn. Notice when we were idling how it would hunt around. Well, that's this, hunting. So I took this apart and I've lengthened the spring to hold it a little tighter. But this is a worn slide in a worn carburetor. And that's just what it is. If it continues to hunt when it idles, I would say your next step is a new carburetor because this one's quite worn. Okay, let's call it. All right, it's been sitting here idling up and down for about the last 15 minutes. I think we're going to do another test ride and see how it goes. All right, still working, still idling. I'll hit the brake. Brake light works. Headlight works. Tail light works. Tail light with brake light works. And the bike is idling, it has a high idle, but it is idling. I believe at this point in time, we're going to do a test ride, and if it comes back in any way, shape, manner, or form, still running, then we're going to declare it done, pending a new carburetor. It has to warm up, and when it does, it idles.
Yeah, get that drip.
This is the drip right here.
Yep, you see it. It's clear as day.
The only way to fix that is to take the case off and have a machinist machine in a seal. A lot of trouble. slow down by doing that. See that? All I had to do was that. And we are done. That's about the best that we can get it to run. The oil leak takes a major machinist effort, and the idle, we've gone through this carburetor too many times.
Yeah.
It's either time for a new carburetor or learn to live with a high idle. But we're going to do a test ride. If the test ride goes well, we're going to release the bike. Okay, here we go. All right, we're going to do a test drive on the bike. We being Kevin's going to test ride the bike. We did discover that holding the throttle all the way open, all the way against the stops, all the way, made the bike easier to start. So that's the process we're using now. A good sloppy tickle, lots of bouncing on the tickle button, and a full wide open throttle. And now with it warm, it's usually 3-4 kicks. The proof will be tomorrow morning when we come out and do a cold start after an overnight cooling, whether or not it's going to start easy or not. But right now we're going to do a test ride. So here we go. Well, let's see how it goes. 1 kicky wicky, 2 kicky wicky, 3 kicky wickies. And getting a little frustrated here. All right. Sloppy tickle. Throttle wide open. Up against the stops. Come on, bike. I love this bike. Well, he's off like a screaming herd of turtles, as my dear wife used to say. Let's see if he comes back. And here he comes, under power.
Runs fine, shifts smoothly, brakes work great. It just takes forever to warm up. You know, keeping the RPMs up and using the rear brake for the first couple of rounds. The rear brake is great. You don't need the front brake. You can completely stop with the rear brake.
All right.
And that allowed me to really keep the RPMs up and come to a full stop with the clutch in. You know, downshift using compression as well to brake. Come to a full stop, drop into idle again after a while. You know, and then as long as you keep the RPMs up, you can turn the lights on. But you turn those lights on when it's idling, gone.
Okay. Well, that's the joy of a battery.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
let's put it up on the lift and watch for overnight leak.
Yep.
And do a cold start in the morning.
Yep. It is just a cold-hearted devil.
It is. All right, so we're going to set it up here and leave it overnight. We will talk to you tomorrow sometime.